Hi, and you're now with the Forerunner Chronicles. All right, everybody, so in the year 2021, a friend of mine was able to secure for me press credentials for the Reawaken tour that was going all throughout America, bringing speakers like Eric Trump, General Michael Flynn, Kash Patel, the current acting director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and a host of other impactful thought leaders that were advancing the tenets of Christian nationalism in a most unsettling way. And as I was functioning as the press at this event, I interviewed many of these individuals, and in the end of my interviews, I shared with them a copy of the book Great Controversy, and I told them about the grave importance of the contents of that book. The interview that I'm getting ready to share with you right now, I drew out of my archive of unreleased video footage all the way back from 2021. And it's an interview that I did with the multimillionaire and former CEO of Overstock.com, Patrick Bryne. The interview is most interesting, and it will give you some insight into the very corrupt nature of what's going on in our nation and the world at large today. So pay close attention, and as always, what you're getting ready to see is the truth.
Hi, and now with the Forerunner Chronicles, and right now we're with Patrick Bryne. And for those of you that don't know who he was embroiled in a major scandal in which he was stated to have been caught up in some type of honeypot issue with a Russian spy.
Who is the Overstock person, Patrick Bryne? He is a successful businessman who launched Overstock.com back in 1999, and he led the internet retailing company for almost 2 decades. And then in 2019, he resigned as CEO after disclosing his 3-year affair with none other than Russian spy Maria Butina. Bryne issued this company press release referencing the deep state and claiming he, quote, helped the men in black, his nickname for FBI agents.
The origin of this is I've explained that I've had a lifelong, very tangential, odd relationship where Uncle Sam, dealing with peace. On a few occasions in my life, I was asked to play a role having something to do with peace with other countries. And I've explained in a speech in Dallas how that came about. I've never worked for the CIA. Everybody jumps to things. Never had anything to do with intelligence, anything like that. But on rare occasion in my life, I got asked to do something towards the cause of peace. I also helped a lot on Wall Street. I was a public company CEO since 2002. I became aware of criminality. By 05, 06, I was bringing it to the feds.
Can you make mention of the company that you were CEO over?
Overstock.com.
Overstock.
I became aware because when you're a public company CEO, you're kind of out there in the mix. You're dealing with hedge funds and regulators and journalists and stuff. And I became aware of illegal activity. People asked me to take part in things. So I started going to the federal government and explaining Wall Street's really crooked. And I helped them. It led to this big 200 people got indicted, 100 people went to jail. If you think of all the people who went to jail 08 to 2010, I had kind of a big role in that whole thing. So because of that, I knew them. 2015, have you ever seen the movies of this Russian redhead, Maria Butina? She asked Donald Trump a question in a public setting in Las Vegas. I happened to have met her 3 days before that, and she presented herself to me as a citizen peace activist from Russia who was over here trying to meet politicians and meet important people and such. Well, and she wanted me to come back to Russia with her to meet some important people there. Well, I immediately that night reported that to Washington, D.C., that there was a good-looking young Russian woman here trying to build contacts in our political circles and trying to get me to come to Russia. And I really would have needed their permission because I maintained a security clearance that before I go to Russia, I need to let them know and have them say green light. Instead, so that's July of 2015. Instead, their behavior was quite odd. And they had me get to know her. Instead of they greenlit me getting to know her. It became romantic. Sorry if I offend you. It was she was living with some Republican big shot, but she started having an affair with me on the side every 6 weeks to see me. But it was perfect for me because it let me sort of keep up on her life and let Uncle Sam understand what she was doing. And I know that may horrify, sorry, I'm a bachelor, I'm a lifelong bachelor, and that's just my life. So that's what, but it grew, I knew they bought
I just need to say something.
that
We still do not
condone
his activity. Let's
Listen,
keep going.
Don't go into
By no
that
means.
field. Don't get into that field of
We do
that
not
stuff.
condone it.
Don't go into that field of that stuff if that kind of stuff troubles you. But anyway, it's just that, okay.
It's okay.
You don't condone it. But I knew by November 2015 that the FBI, well, it turns out I was working for a man named Peter Strzok.
Okay.
I did not know his name, but he was sending these orders, and the orders included opening doors so she could keep doing this. And it struck me as really odd that they were doing this. I could tell by Thanksgiving 2015 that they were setting up the Republican Party for a scandal. It was not Donald Trump. They were setting up whoever won in the Republican Party. They were going to have a scandal on the shelf that they could pull off, shake up and crack, and spread it and create a Russian scandal on the Republicans. I knew that in December of 2015 that that's what they were up to. And then they had me peel off that and work on a different project, which was bribing Hillary Clinton. And they said they needed me to set up Hillary Clinton and the bride. I spent 2 months on it, and on January 14th, 2016, in a hotel in Washington, D.C., I tell you, there's some dirty, deep state within the United States government. They had me bribe Hillary Clinton, and then afterwards let me know we're not going to prosecute her. We're just going to use it as leverage on her to control her during her presidency. 4 federal people told me that.
Can you tell the specifics of how the bribe?
Sure.
Listen now.
It was done, I'll tell you this much. The assignment to me was like this, Byrne. There's a country that we believe wants to pay her a bride. We need you to befriend that country, find the bad man, and in the following 2 months, this event occurs. Somewhere in the world, there's going to be a room, and Hillary Clinton's going to walk into that room, and the bad man's going to walk into the room. They're going to spend 10 minutes alone together. You make that happen any way you want. And I said, well, that's going to take some of this, and they said, we understand. So 7 weeks later, it was all laid out, and she agreed to do it. And she was on the 8th floor. Her assistant was on the 5th floor. Her limousine was at 9 a.m. in the morning. The bag man was brought in, so I'll leave it to your imagination, sir, how it was a foreign country to which I'd never been, that I had to go, befriend, find the bag man, and kind of lead them to think I was the kind of guy who can and would do something like this.
Right.
I'll leave that to your viewers' imagination. So 7 weeks later, January 14th, 2016, she was in Washington, D.C., at 8:47, she left her hotel room as if she's going to her limousine at 9. She got off on the 5th floor, went into her assistant's room. At 8:30, the bag man had come in and gone to the 5th floor to the assistant's room. At 8:47, she gets in the elevator, comes in, gets off, goes in, the assistant steps out. They spent 10 minutes. She came out, gets in her limousine, drives away. So it's not on her schedule. She's in her limousine by 9:02. It's not in any schedule, but it happened. But I wasn't in the room, so I don't know if she took it or not. A few days later, I met with the federal government, and they told me, you need to forget every moment of this ever happened. We mean you need to scrub every trace of it from your memory. And I said, why? First, they gave me a copy. Am I giving you more detail than one?
Fine.
They said, you feel free to edit it down if you want. They said, it's been reanalyzed, Patrick, and it's clear Hillary's going to win. This conversation is about January 20, 2016. It's clear Hillary's going to win. The first thing she's going to do is send her goons over to the FBI to say who was part of investigating Hillary. All of us who were part of this, Patrick, we're all going to be destroyed, our chain of command, and this includes you. You're going to be destroyed. So this has been analyzed from the highest levels with scrubbing the mission. So I said, yes, sir. I thought about it a couple weeks, got back in touch. And this time there was 2 men representing Comey, and a personal representative of John Brennan came to the meeting. And I was told that John Brennan had signed a piece of paper that let him intrude himself because of the Maria stuff. And so there were, but he wasn't CIA. It was not a CIA. It was just to be clear, the CIA was not itself involved in the stuff I'm talking about. But the upper echelons of the FBI were, and they said, we need you to forget this ever happened. And I said, I don't understand. You have 10 months before the election. This could be, we don't want the 80s again where somebody's under perpetual investigation in the White House. And they told me, Patrick, think of there as being a Bunsen burner. Basically, they let me know, I don't want to go into the language, but they let me know that basically there'd be that information about the bride would be sitting on a Bunsen burner in the DOJ, and with the deep state would be controlling the flame on the Bunsen burner. If Hillary obeyed them, the flame's low. If she doesn't obey them, flame gets turned up. And that way they were going to manage Hillary Clinton. And that was said to me by federal people. So we've been in the middle of a soft coup since early 2016. That conversation happened in the first week of February 2016 in Salt Lake, Utah. Now, I've come out publicly about this, and let me tell you, it's caused a lot of... I understand that about half of the FBI thinks I'm a hero, and about half of the FBI thinks I'm Snowden, but I'm not smart enough to flee the country.
No. So fast forward now, and Hillary doesn't win as was predicted. When did your head come onto the chopping block, so to say?
Well, I did something. Now it starts getting crazy. My story probably sounds odd to your viewers. If you understood my life, it's kind of funny. People who've known me for years are now come out and say, oh, now it all makes sense.
And if you don't know who this is, just go and Google him, because you'll see who we're talking to right now. Go ahead.
Well, I did something. Unbeknownst to everyone involved, this is where it gets really crazy. In 2006, when I was fighting Wall Street, I became aware of how corrupt the federal government was. The Senate Judiciary Committee called me in, and they explained to me in 05, 06, we have a power that transcends every other power within government. We investigate corruption. And if we think that a part of the government's corrupt, Patrick, we look into it. And if we hear that there's corruption in the manufacture of nuclear weapons, we look into it, and nobody gets to tell us, oh, you don't have the proper clearance. We're the Senate Judiciary Committee. And Senator Specter, Arlen Specter, was a Democrat, turned Republican, turned Democrat, a federal prosecutor, eminent beloved by both sides. And he taught me all this, and for about a year, they had me meeting with other parts of the government, kicked by other parts of the government, but actually reporting back to the Senate Judiciary Committee about who seemed clean and who seemed dirty. So I was taking meetings and having other people who worked with me take meetings and engage with the federal government, but actually we were reporting back to the Senate Judiciary Committee about who was doing their job honestly and who wasn't. I was eventually given a letter, or shown a letter, and this is where it gets really crazy. The Senate told me 7 senators around the table wrote a letter where they said, so I'm single, and I'm actually had a bunch of health issues. It's kind of quite odd I'm still alive. And I had made at that point about $40 million, and I'd spent 10 of it of my own just trying to investigate Wall Street. They thought I was a little crazy. Anyway, they wrote a letter that told me I'm going to spend the rest of my life investigating corruption within the federal government. There's a sentence in it that says something about systemic corruption infiltrating the federal government, and the next sentence says, the Senate Judiciary requests Patrick Byrne get extraordinary latitude under the laws of the United States to investigate the federal government.
Wow.
Now that letter has been found and its existence has been confirmed. Everyone's freaking out about it because it's 3 generations of staffers later. Everybody's saying, we didn't know, we forgot. But but given that happened, and they've already confirmed to journalists, okay, we have found this very odd letter from 2006 in the files. Given that fact, now let's go forward 10 years. I'm sitting in a room with 3 federal agents who are just explaining to me this Bunsen burner story that I've just helped the deep state set up Hillary Clinton for a bribe so that she can be blackmailed. Would you agree that matches what the letter told me to find and stop?
That seems quite interesting. Let me ask you a question. It's kind of off key, but not so much. In the process of all of this, did you have an opportunity to have any meeting or interaction with Epstein?
Funny you say that. I'll tell you something big.
Right.
I'll tell you a story no one knows yet.
Okay.
You may not approve of some of this other. Should I address you as pastor?
No, just address me as Forerunner. Let's go.
Forerunner.
Yeah.
About March of 2019. So he got arrested, I think, around June of 2019. He got around February of 2019, I was in a conference down in Mexico, and somebody I know on site but don't know. It was a 2 or 3 day conference, and the person made a point of bumping into me and inviting and telling me several times, "Oh, hey Pat, you should meet." Well, so before I go on, I knew all about Jeffrey Epstein in 2006. There was a website called Zero Hedge that was publishing everything about Jeffrey Epstein. So I'm kind of surprised the big scandal comes out later, because everything you know about him now was in the public in 06 or 07 if you looked. And everybody on Wall Street knew all about that 15 years ago. So here it is, 2019, someone meets me that I barely know, and he starts telling me, I'm a friend of Jeffrey Epstein. And Patrick, you shouldn't believe what you hear about Jeffrey Epstein. He's a really good guy. He's on he's on this island. He's got this great trading operation. He's really brilliant. You should go meet him. He really wants you to come meet him, Patrick. Really wants you to come meet him. Won't you come out? And he found like 3 occasions over the course of this 2 or 3 days to kind of intercept me and try to do this. And I knew already what Jeffrey Epstein was about. And I thought, no, obviously. But I got thinking, but I wasn't going to just come out and tell the guy that. Right. And so I acted like, but I just brushed it off. Well, the guy showed up at my house about a month later. And again, for some other thing, he spent a couple days at my house. He wanted to be my friend, brought his wife. They spent a couple days. It was nice. He must have found 3 occasions over those 2 days to bring up, hey, did I mention there's this guy, Epstein, Patrick? You should really meet him. He's really smart. He wants to make you. He kept bringing me up. And I started thinking the right thing to do, which you may disagree with, was just, so I'm an open water swimmer. I love open water swimming, was to go out, to say yes, and go and get him to go for a nice long swim with me.
Yeah, Jeffrey Epstein.
And then drown him. Get him 100 yards and drown him. And that would be that. However, and so I worked it out. I even went to a swimming pool with another guy my size, and I used to be a wrestler. We started working out different moves, what would be the way to do it. Would you disapprove of that as a man of God?
100%.
Even if you knew he was out there doing that to kids? Okay, I'm with you. Fair enough. But someone else let me know, okay, someone listened to, don't you know, Patrick, the whole iron, I knew that it was all a big blackmail operation. They were just trying to get me into.
Right.
But someone said,
get you in a compromised situation.
Yeah.
Right.
But somebody told me, Patrick, the whole island's wired. Even offshore, they will be filming everything you do. If you go for a swim, they'll be filming it. Everything they'll have it on video. So I I turned down the invitation. So okay, didn't mean to shock you there, but that was and so I never did meet him. And then a month later, he got arrested. And so would that have been so bad?
Well. Okay. I'm not going to tell you that, but I'm.
So again?
In the eyes of the beholder.
Well, we don't condone it.
Okay, you don't condone it.
So let's keep going though. Now, Bill and Hillary, do you believe that they have any involvement, or do you have any knowledge of them having any involvement in child trafficking?
Well, so let me address that. I'll give you some things. It may not be the whole thing that you want, the whole enchilada, but I'll give you some things.
Yeah.
So
just put some enchilada on the plate.
I'll put some enchilada.
Okay.
I'll put a couple bites of enchilada.
Okay.
So first of all, when I've heard these stories like Pizzagate and such, I didn't give it any. The idea that elites are somewhere eating the brains of children that all sounded way too far-fetched for me. However, over the last couple of years, I've been involved with law enforcement because of this election stuff and had a lot of exposure to law enforcement. And in fact, before the election, I went down to Texas to get involved in some anti-human trafficking activity there. I became aware, I was working with some people who were dealing with human trafficking and working for the police, for the state police. And it's a much bigger deal than I had any idea 2 years ago. The money from it is so big, it's corrupting our country. J. Edgar Hoover did not want the FBI to go after drugs because he knew there's so much money with drugs, it'll corrupt his own police force. Well, similarly, there's so much human trafficking. I think the cartel money is their number one profit center. I hate to put it in terms, but did you know they can take like a 12-year-old over into the U.S., they sexually assault her 30, 40 times, so she's broken, drug her up, she'll service 30 men a day for 6 days a week, she'll make $1 million a year for her owner. At age 17, they just slit her. She's crazy. They just slit her throat, dump her in the desert. The cops in Texas tell me this stuff doesn't even make the news anymore. It's happening all over Texas. Them finding girls, like this, remains of in the desert. It doesn't even make the news. So I'm very concerned about human trafficking. I don't know if I believe the stuff about elites taking adrenochrome or whatever out of them, but I'll give you the piece that nobody else knows is pay attention to this. There was the FBI raided a Democratic congressman named Henry Cuellar about 2 months ago, and he's been laundering money through a Miami duty-free shop to a numbered account in Azerbaijan. And I believe that that's going to turn out to tie in. Just remember Azerbaijan. I believe you're going to end up seeing a tie-in with Hillary Clinton with that. So Sinaloan drug cartel money is being washed by, and this is now the FBI's come out with this. Sinaloan drug cartel money is being laundered by a dirty Democrat named Henry Cuellar into Azerbaijan, and I think you may find Hillary Clinton has a little taste of that coming.
Wow, that's heavy. That is heavy.
I'll tell you something I've never said publicly,
Okay.
and it's going to piss people off. But it's time. I've waited 3 years. And anyway, that money, just remember that story, that money going to Azerbaijan, I think you're going to find out that ties into Hillary Clinton.
Yeah. No, go ahead. You were going to say something. Say it.
I'll tell you off camera so you know I won't say it publicly. But okay.
Fair enough.
Seem like a man I can trust.
Well, I'm not going to, if you want me to hold it to my chest, I will.
And is that your mic?
That's my mic.
And this is my mic.
That's
We're going
yours.
to cover, I'm going to whisper something,
Okay.
so only you know it.
Okay. Wow.
Keep that one to yourself, sir.
And his associate and sponsor, didn't you tell me that?
You can tell him that later. That's what's going on.
Right here, Don. This is serious. Before I forget, I have something that I'd like to give you. Yeah, I do. Before I forget, I have a special book here. It's called The Great Controversy. And it really goes into detail about some of the corruption that's going to take place and is taking place in our country here in these last days. And it draws those current event and biblical prophetic connections that I was making mention of to you earlier. So it'll be really mind-blowing for you, especially if you're a man that enjoys history.
I do.
This will really help to pull some dots together.
I will read it.
I mean, the beginning portion of the book really is history. It deals with the history of the Bible, Protestant Reformation, the emergence of the Roman Catholic Church, etc.
I love it.
And then it really brings it down to the emergence of this nation as a global superpower and what role this nation will play in the fomentation of a new world order and the changing of the global dynamic. So it's really powerful.
Does this thing that get birthed, is it something good or is it something bad?
Well, the end is good if you're on the side of the Lord. But if you're not on the side of the Lord, it's all bad.
In Ecclesiastes chapter 3, beginning at verse 16, the Bible tells us, "Moreover, I saw under the sun the place of judgment, that wickedness was there, and the place of righteousness, that iniquity was there. And I said in mine heart, God shall judge the righteous and the wicked. For there's a time there for every purpose and for every work." When the Bible speaks of the observation of the places of judgment, it's speaking about the court systems, the seats of government, places where legislation is advanced that's supposed to promote justice. But instead of justice, what was seen was wickedness, corruption. And unfortunately, this type of degradation was not only seen in the civil centers, it was also seen in the religious centers, because the Word of God tells us that in the place of righteousness, iniquity was prevalent. The Word of God informs us that as we see this type of corruption overtaking humanity, These are the sure indicators that the time of God's judgment is coming. Friends, the Bible forewarned us in the book of Luke chapter 17 and verse 26, and as it was in the days of Noah, meaning Noah, so shall it be also in the days of the Son of Man. And according to the book of Genesis chapter 6 and verse 5, in the days of Noah, God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of the hearts of men were only evil continually, corruption. I hope this interview that you just saw is helping you grasp even more that we are living in a very crooked and perverse generation that is ripe for the second coming of Jesus. My simple question to you today is this: are you ready for Jesus to come? May God help us to prepare for the hour that is right upon us. And whether you like it or not, the truth is the truth.